Hello, guys. Hello. Use your words. Guys, how are y'all doing? I never ever say that in a video. Hey guys, what's the crack? How are you doing? I hope you're all keeping well amongst all this craziness that's going on in the world. I'm going to do another little sit down video today discussing what is going on in the big old Broadway musical theatre community. Because I kind of dabbled in it a little bit in my previous video about Frozen, the reason that it closed, and how the current pandemic really played a major factor in that show's sudden departure from the Great White Way. So basically, Broadway has been shut down now for several weeks. It's really disappointing, but it's needed. So basically, Broadway shut down because obviously with everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic, and unfortunately, the saddest thing and the hardest pill to swallow is realizing that Broadway is probably going to be the last thing that's really going to reopen for many different factors. When you think of a Broadway theatre, it's literally a big box with anywhere between 1,500 to 2,500 people sitting very closely shoulder to shoulder, and you're all breathing the same air and everyone's sweating and everyone's having a good time. You're laughing, you're crying, you're eating your popcorn, drinking your wine, and that's a lot. That is a hot pot for any sort of virus to spread and do some damage. So Broadway has been closed for several weeks now. Initially, when they closed first off because the pandemic was starting to become a major issue, and also secondly, I believe there was one, could be more than one, there was definitely, oh my goodness, sorry, I just saw something falling over in my room. Secondly, there was a usher who worked in several different theatres in New York City around Broadway who tested positive for COVID. So they had to shut the theatres down because there was so many people that came into contact with, for example, that one usher. And on top of that as well, then Moulin Rouge had to cancel one of their performances because two of their performers in the show tested positive. So Broadway shut down several weeks ago. I'd say it's got to be at least 2.5 months now. And they initially said it was going to be a 4-week closure. Then they extended it on to, I think it was June 1st. And then they recently, in the last 7 days or so, said that they're going to stay closed until September. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Broadway will not open realistically until January. And it's one thing to say that, it's another thing to fully comprehend what that means for the Broadway community and Broadway itself. Because really and truly it means that when Broadway reopens, it is going to be but a shell of what it used to be. You know, there's so many shows on Broadway that unfortunately are going to close, and some of them might surprise you. I think any of the shows, for example, the big ones, for example, Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, The Book of Mormon, Chicago, they're golden. The Lion King, they're fine. They're not going to go anywhere. Aladdin too, because obviously Frozen closed, so the Aladdin and The Lion King are going to be fine. But those shows are all good. The shows that are running several years, that have lots of money behind them, have recouped their money. Everything since then has been, they're still doing great money year on year. Those shows fortunately will be fine. But there's a lot of shows in the middle that could go either way. For example, I feel like, Mean Girls could really close. Now, Mean Girls, to be fair, I think it was in January they did recoup their the investment. For me, Mean Girls is one of those shows that box office wise has been kind of doing so the last year or so. It's not doing fantastic, and I don't think there's going to be enough money in the bank to keep it going, like money that they've accumulated over the last 2 years or so it's running now. So Mean Girls is one of those shows for me that might not last, and that's sad. There's a lot of other shows I don't think they're going to make it, like Mrs. Doubtfire. I can't see that show opening in January, which is very disappointing because I think it had like 2 previews. West Side Story is another one of those big shows, massive cast, big theatre, and it's hard to say. I would say it's unlikely that that show also will be open come January. I'd say it'll unfortunately have to shutter before then. There's a lot of, the Tina Turner musical, again, I can't see it really pulling through. Beetlejuice is gone. I'm not going to start saying that Beetlejuice is coming back, because Beetlejuice is essentially gone. The only thing going for Beetlejuice is that The Music Man, which was meant to take over the Winter Garden come September, that show is not going to happen this year. So the only thing that's going for Beetlejuice right now is currently the sets, etc., are all still sitting nicely in the Winter Garden. The Music Man is not going to happen this season. It's going to be lucky if it happens the following September, because there's so much more that's involved there, including Hugh Jackman's, filming schedule, Sutton Foster's filming schedule. There's a lot going in there. So the one thing that's going for Beetlejuice right now is everything's kind of neatly tucked away in the Winter Garden, and if things open up again in January, which I think they will, but if things can open up in January again, then maybe Beetlejuice might be able to have a last hurrah and get to perform a couple of weeks before The Music Man has to move in. Again, this is complete speculation on my part. I don't know the complete ins and outs. I know a lot, but I don't know the ins and outs of everything to do with Broadway. Which brings us on to the Tony Awards, because without Broadway, there is no Tony Awards. So what's happening with the Tony Awards? Well, CBS decided why they did this. They figured that because we weren't going to have a Tony Awards, they'd put on a sing-along Grease the musical. Nobody asked for that. No one asked for a sing-along version of Grease the musical. Listen, if I wanted to watch Grease, I'd put it on Netflix, or I'd put it on Amazon, or whatever it's available on, because it's probably available on one of those streaming services. I don't want to sit down and watch a sing-along version of Grease. Like, I don't want to put myself through that. So CBS decided that they were going to do a sing-along version of Grease instead of the Tony Awards. Now why? Why, in God's name, did they not just think, hey, let's celebrate, because the Tony Awards is all about celebrating the theatre and Broadway community and the arts. But hey, why don't we do an accumulation of many different performances, of Tony Award performances, a big old celebration of the Great White Way? But no, instead they figured that we wanted to watch Sandy and Danny fall in love and fly off in a magical car. Choices. The Tony Awards obviously cancelled. What's going to happen with the Tony Awards? I reckon the current season, which was prematurely shut out or shut down, or whatever you want to say about it, I reckon the next Tony Awards should happen June 2021. Those Tony Awards will be a big old hodgepodge of the last two seasons. So the season that's currently in New York, or whatever, is those current shows that open this year, for example, Moulin Rouge, West Side Story, as well as any new shows that can just about reopen come, whenever Broadway reopens. Like, there's a lot to really think about and process at the moment. For example, the sad thing about Broadway right now is any new productions that will potentially open or had planned to open up over the next couple of months to a year or two that were, in the pipeline, chances are it's unreal likely. There's less of a chance these shows are going to open now. Why? Because unfortunately, when Broadway does choose to reopen, it's not going to be what it used to be. One good thing about it is the ticket price might not be so high. I won't have to pay $230 something to go see Hamilton. Wild. But ticket prices will probably more than likely come down, because the supply and demand. People want to see Broadway, they want to see musical theatres, but chances are it won't be the same volume of people that are going to want to see shows. And also the Broadway community and the Broadway theatre in general is heavily reliant on tourism that comes to New York City, and Manhattan, unfortunately, is going to take a real whack to all this pandemic, because people aren't going to be able to travel to Manhattan and travel to an area that has such a high level of cases. Unfortunately, it does mean for the Broadway community that, it's unlikely that we're going to see. One thing I used to love about New York and love about Broadway in particular was that I always felt like Broadway was this conveyor belt of shows, and I liked the showbiz part of it. I've had shows that I've loved that closed after a short run, and I was like, oh, this isn't fair. But a part of me has actually grown to love it. Not that people have lost their jobs, but I've loved the fact that one show closes, another show opens. One show leaves, the next show loads in. So that's one thing I've loved about Broadway in particular, more so than the West End, because I feel like Broadway is constantly going with the West End can get at times a bit more stale in regards to productions that are available to you. So with that, I feel like that unfortunately we're going to see a lot of shows not shows, theaters in New York that might go long periods of time without productions, and also we're not going to get the same level of new productions and revivals of musicals and plays that we have seen in the last couple of years, because we have been so fortunate in the last couple of years with the amount of shows that have come to New York and the amount of new talent that we have been exposed to. That's a sad thing, because we're not going to get the musicals like we had been so used to for so long, but maybe we might learn to appreciate other shows more so than we would have done in the past. Anyways, guys, I hope you like this bit of a rundown of what's going on in New York right now, the Broadway community and the Tony Awards. Be sure to give me a like, comment, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow me on social media. I'll post it somewhere, I think it's down on here, it goes. Somewhere down there I'll post it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.